Joyce, enveloped in silence, sat in the spacious living room of her mansion in San Francisco. The room, elegantly decorated, reflected the wealth accumulated over the years, but failed to fill the void left by the absence of Daniel, her late husband. Photos of them together, from their college days to the glorious days of the jewelry company, adorned the walls and tables. Each image was a portal to a happier, more vibrant past. She picked up one of the photographs, delicately touching Daniel's face. "You always knew how to make me smile, Daniel. How I miss you," she whispered, her voice laden with longing. The memory of their love, their shared dreams, and the challenges they had overcome together brought a melancholic smile to her lips. Her gaze then shifted to the table nearby, where letters and photographs of their children, Peter, Beatrice, and John, were scattered. They were distant reminders of a time when their family seemed more united. Now, their conversations were brief, their visits rare, and devoid of warmth. "Can't you see beyond the numbers and contracts, my children?" Joyce wondered inwardly, feeling a pang of heartache. Loneliness was a heavy burden. Joyce wondered if she had failed somewhere, if she could have done something differently to keep the family together. But deep down, she knew she had given her best. Daniel always used to say, "You are the heart of this family, Joy. Keep it strong." She stood up, determined not to be beaten down by loneliness. "I am still the heart of this family," she murmured, looking at Daniel's photo, "and I will keep this heart strong for you, for me, and for our children, no matter how distant they may be." With this thought, Joyce began to make plans for the next day. Perhaps it was time for a change. Perhaps it was time to rekindle the flames of a family that had somehow lost its way. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but the determination and strength she had always shared with Daniel still burned within her. Joyce then went to her desk, where she started writing letters to each of her children. They were not ordinary letters, but heartfelt messages expressing her love, her concerns, and an invitation to dine together soon. She wanted to try once again to re-establish that lost connection. "Who knows, there may still be a chance for us," Joyce thought, sealing the last letter with a mix of hope and apprehension. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face whatever came, armed with the unwavering love of a mother and the wisdom of a life lived with passion and integrity. As the shadows of the night deepened, Joyce looked outside to the moonlit garden and felt an unexpected peace. Outside, the world continued to turn, but there in that moment of reflection and resolution, Joyce felt like she was taking a step towards a new tomorrow, perhaps a little brighter, a little more filled with love and understanding. What would you do in Joyce's place? Would you try again to reconnect with your children, or would you keep them at a distance? Would you try to teach them a lesson? Leave your thoughts in the comments. After sending the letters to her children, she waited and waited. Time passed, and there were no responses. Joyce was very tired, her age was advanced. Then, in the conference room of the elegant headquarters of the jewelry company, Joyce, with a determined expression mixed with the evident fragility of her weakened health, called a crucial meeting. Sitting at the head of the table, surrounded by photographs of innovative jewelry designs, she awaited the arrival of Lambert, the young CEO who had started his journey in the company as a humble goldsmith. Lambert entered, exuding calm confidence. "You wanted to see me, Joyce?" he asked, noticing the seriousness on her face. Joyce looked at Lambert with a mix of admiration and concern. "Lambert, you know that my health has been a challenge lately," she began, pausing to adjust a dossier in front of her, "and over the years, you've demonstrated loyalty and confidence that have exceeded all my expectations." Lambert nodded, a slight discomfort in his gaze. "I owe everything to your guidance, Joyce. You gave me a chance when no one else believed in me." Joyce smiled, but her eyes revealed a deep sadness. "That brings me to the decision I've made. I'm delegating full management of the company to you. You are more than capable, and I trust that you will continue to lead our brand to success." Lambert was visibly surprised, his words stumbling in gratitude and uncertainty. "Joyce, this is a great honor, but are you sure? I've always seen you in charge. It's hard to imagine the company without your direct leadership." Joyce placed her hand on the dossier, her gaze steady. I would never make this decision without complete confidence in you, Lambert. You know every facet of this business, from the jeweler's bench to the complexities of administration, and most importantly, you have the heart and soul that this company needs. Lambert moved, replied Joyce, I promise to honor your trust. I will dedicate myself to preserving the legacy you and Daniel built. Your vision will always be the guiding light for our decisions. Joyce nodded, an approving smile on her lips. I know you will, and I'll be here, Lambert, not to interfere, but to advise whenever you need. The conversation then turned to the practical details of the transition. Joyce explained her ideas and expectations while Lambert listened attentively, absorbing every word, every nuance of Joyce's wisdom. He knew he was about to embark on a challenging journey, but felt prepared and honored by this immense responsibility. At the end of the meeting, Joyce was alone in the room, contemplating the uncertain future ahead. She knew this decision marked the beginning of a new era for the company. As she looked out the window, watching the city beyond, she felt a mixture of relief and melancholy. A new phase was beginning, both for her and for Lambert, and although the future was uncertain, she firmly believed that the seeds she had planted over the years were now flourishing in Lambert's capable hands. She stood up slowly, walked to the window, and looked at the horizon. May you grow and thrive, Lambert, just like this company, Joyce murmured, her thoughts fading into the glow of the evening. May you carry our passion and artistry to new heights. With these thoughts, Joyce left the room, feeling a mix of pride and nostalgia. She knew she had made the right choice, entrusting the legacy of a lifetime to someone who had started as an apprentice, but now proved to be a true leader. It was the end of an era and the beginning of another, but the spirit of the company would remain untouched and shining, just like the jewelry they created. Peter, Beatrice, and John, although Joyce's children, had forged distant paths from the family business. Peter, caught up in the frenzy of Wall Street, rarely took the time to call his mother. Their conversations always revolved around dividends and investments. Mom, how are the company stocks doing? I need to know for my investments, he would say during the rare calls, ignoring Joyce's health or loneliness. Beatrice, a rising digital influencer, lived in a world of glamour and social media. Her visits to her mother were brief and superficial, more focused on capturing perfect moments for her social media than truly connecting with Joyce. Oh, Mom, this mansion is so photogenic. I'll take some pictures, she would exclaim, while Joyce longed for a real conversation. John, the adventurer, always in some remote part of the world, maintained even more sporadic contact. His rare messages were short and distant. Hi, Mom. How are things there? I'm in Thailand now. I need a bit more of my share for the next trip, he would say. The three of them, although they loved their mother in their own way, were so entangled in their own lives that they failed to perceive Joyce's emotional needs. They saw the family business not as a legacy of love and dedication, but as a source of income that sustained their lifestyles. Joyce, on the other hand, felt the pain of this disconnection, longing for a deeper and more meaningful relationship with her children. As time passed, Joyce's condition worsened to the point where hospitalization became necessary. In the quiet ward of the hospital, Joyce lay in her bed, a fragile figure, her eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and apprehension. The news of her hospitalization had finally brought her children, Peter, Beatrice, and John, to her side. When the door opened and they entered, a glimmer of joy passed through her weary eyes. Mom, how are you? Asked Peter, maintaining a formal distance, his voice sounding more obligatory than concerned. Beatrice, always attentive to appearances, adjusted her hair before approaching the bed. You look well, Mom. Are the doctors taking good care of you? She asked, her voice devoid of emotional warmth. John, the least comfortable in expressing emotions, stood by the door, his hands restless in his pockets. We hope you'll recover soon, Mom, he said, avoiding eye contact. Joyce, trying to ignore the growing sense of disappointment, inquired about their lives, eager for any connection. But the answers were brief, their minds clearly elsewhere. I'm fine, Mom, just as busy as ever, said Peter, checking his phone. Beatrice talked about a recent event she attended, but her words sounded empty. As the conversation dragged on, Joyce increasingly realized the superficiality of that visit. They were there physically, but their thoughts and concerns were elsewhere. "Will you stay for dinner?" "The hospital has a nice visitor's lounge," Joyce tried, her voice choked with hope, to prolong that rare moment together. Peter exchanged a glance with Beatrice and John before politely replying, "Unfortunately, Mom, we have commitments later. You know how it is, life doesn't stop." Beatrice nodded in agreement, while John simply murmured, "Sorry, Mom." Joyce felt a lump in her throat but forced a smile. "I understand, my dears. I'm glad you came." She tried to hide her disappointment, but her eyes betrayed the sadness of a mother who realized the growing emotional distance between her and her children. As they quickly said their goodbyes, Joyce held each of their hands for a moment, trying to convey her love and affection through that brief touch. "Take care," she said softly, a solitary tear rolling down her cheek. After the door closed behind them, Joyce stared into emptiness, the reality of her loneliness weighing on her heart. She leaned back in her bed, closed her eyes, and allowed the tears to flow freely. In that moment of vulnerability, Joyce realized that despite physical proximity, her children were farther away than ever, leaving her alone with her memories and the harsh reality of a family connection that had faded over time. Days went by in the hospital, and Joyce tried to find comfort in simple moments. As her children didn't make much effort to visit her on an ordinary day, as she strolled through the well-kept gardens of the hospital, Joyce sought a moment of peace and reflection. The scent of freshly bloomed flowers brought brief relief to her weary soul. While walking, her steps led her near a bench hidden by lush bushes where, unexpectedly, she overheard the voices of Peter, Beatrice, and John, who had come for a quick visit more out of obligation than genuine concern. "As soon as the inheritance is resolved, I'll finally be able to expand my investments," Peter said with a tone of anticipation. "And I need a good amount for that influencer trip I was planning," added Beatrice impatiently. Joyce, frozen behind the foliage, felt a wave of disappointment flood her heart. She remained quiet, absorbing every word. "I hope Mom understands. It's time to think about the future, our future," John concluded, attempting to justify his words. Later, when she reunited with her children, Joyce kept her discovery to herself, but the pain in her heart was almost palpable. "How have you all been during this time? You haven't visited," she asked. "Normal, Mom, nothing new," Peter replied, oblivious to the sadness in her eyes. Joyce nodded, hiding her hurt behind a facade of normalcy. However, inside, she was devastated. Now fully aware of her children's true intentions, the revelation weighed on her like a shadow, tarnishing the beauty of the gardens that had once seemed so serene. Time in the hospital was long, but it eventually came to an end. After recovering, Joyce passed through the gates of her elegant residence. Upon being discharged, she felt a mixture of relief and melancholy. The mansion, though imposing, seemed empty, reflecting the loneliness Joyce felt in her heart. She was warmly greeted by Lucille, the housekeeper, and Robert, her faithful driver. Lucille, with a welcoming smile, helped Joyce settle on the couch. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Joyce? Can I prepare something special for you?" she asked, her concern genuine. Joyce smiled gratefully. "Just being home makes me feel better, Lucille. A cup of tea would be wonderful, thank you." While Lucille went to the kitchen, Robert approached. "It's good to have you back, ma'am. If you need anything, I'm here." In the days that followed, Joyce found comfort in the company of Lucille and Robert. They spent hours conversing. Lucille shared stories of her family and her struggles in caring for elderly parents. Robert talked about his dreams for his daughter's future. Joyce, in turn, shared memories of her past, venting about the distance from her children. These conversations created a special bond, and Joyce realized that, despite their roles as employees, Lucille and Robert were her most loyal and sincere friends. They cared for her not out of obligation but out of genuine affection that transcended social and professional boundaries. In Lucille and Robert, Joyce found human warmth and understanding that she had long missed. They became her confidants, attentive listeners, and shoulders to lean on in times of need. Since the day at the hospital when Joyce overheard her children's conversation, she hadn't stopped reflecting on it. One day, in the calm of her office, walls adorned with family portraits and precious moments, Joyce sat across from her lawyer, Mr. Hamilton, a determined expression etched on her face. "Mr. Hamilton, I've come to an important decision," she began, her voice resolute. "It's time to make changes to my will." Mr. Hamilton, a middle-aged man with thin-rimmed glasses, looked at her, a mixture of surprise and curiosity in his eyes. "Of course, Mrs. Joyce, what do you have in mind?" Joyce took a deep breath before speaking. "Firstly, I want 50% of my fortune to be divided equally among my grandchildren. They are young and have a future ahead of them. This fortune can give them a good start, even though their parents do not deserve it. However, they can only access this money when they turn 18. The lawyer nodded, taking careful notes. "And what about the rest?" "I want to leave the jewelry company to Lambert. He has been more than a CEO, he is the soul of this company now," Joyce said with conviction. "And what about the remaining part of your fortune, Mrs. Joyce?" inquired Mr. Hamilton. Joyce looked out the window, reflecting for a moment. "Lucille and Robert," she began. "They have been more than employees to me, they have been true friends, my confidants in the toughest times. Therefore, I wish the remaining part of my fortune to be divided equally between them, in recognition of their loyalty and the care they have shown." Mr. Hamilton raised an eyebrow, impressed by Joyce's generosity and decision. "That is very noble of you, Mrs. Joyce. I will prepare the documentation according to your instructions." Joyce nodded, feeling a weight lifted off her shoulders. She knew her decisions might come as a surprise and perhaps discontent to some family members, but deep in her heart, she felt she was doing the right thing. It was a way to honor those who had truly shown love and care for her, a lesson in gratitude and acknowledgement that she hoped her children would one day learn. 2 weeks after Joyce's conversation with her lawyer, Mr. Hamilton, in Peter's spacious living room, Peter, Beat Rick, and John gathered with expressions of disbelief and anger. After being informed about the changes in Joyce's will, the tension was palpable, and voices rose in frustration. "This is unbelievable. How could she leave half of the fortune to the grandchildren and nothing to us?" exclaimed Peter, clearly outraged, running his hand through his hair in despair. Beat Rick, arms crossed, retorted, "And this idea of leaving the company to Lambert, and Lucille and Robert receiving a part of the fortune, this is absurd." John, the calmest of the three but still furious, suggested, "We need to contest this legally. It can't be legal to make these last-minute changes." Quickly, they consulted a lawyer, seeking a way to reverse the situation. However, after a detailed analysis, the lawyer informed them, "I'm sorry, but everything was done in accordance with the law. Your mother was of sound mind when she made the changes, and all legal formalities were observed." The three siblings looked at each other, the reality of the situation beginning to sink in. "So there's nothing we can do?" asked Beat Rick, her voice full of frustration. "Unfortunately, no," confirmed the lawyer. Peter slammed his fist on the table, his expression a mix of anger and helplessness. "This can't be happening." Beat Rick sat down defeated, while John remained silent, thoughtful. They were shocked and angry, but slowly they began to realize that there was no way to change their mother's final decision. This revelation forced the siblings to confront not only the loss of an expected inheritance, but also the reality of a relationship they had neglected for so long. Joyce's decision raised more than just legal questions, it raised a profound questioning of the true value of family and love. 2 months after the changes to her will, Joyce peacefully passed away in her home, surrounded by the care of Lucille and Robert and the memories of a fulfilling life. Her departure marked the end of an era of elegance, wisdom, and compassion. At the funeral, held under the majestic shades of the trees in the mansion's garden, family, friends, and staff gathered to pay their final respects. Lucille, with tears in her eyes, spoke softly to the gathering. "Joyce was more than an employer to me, she was a friend, a mentor. She taught us the true value of love and gratitude." Robert, his voice choked with emotion, added, "She was the soul of this house. Her kindness and understanding changed our lives. I will never forget what she did for me and my family." Joyce's children, Peter, Beatrick, and John, remained silent, their expression somber. Their mother's final decision made them reflect deeply on the relationships they had with her and with each other. They began to understand the legacy that Joyce had left, a legacy not of material wealth but of love, compassion, and loyalty. In that moment of mourning and reflection, it became clear that Joyce's final decision was not just about the distribution of her fortune but a final lesson on what truly matters in life. She departed, leaving a powerful message that would echo in the hearts of those who knew her. True value is not in what one possesses, but in the love and kindness one shares. Her life and choices would remain an eternal testament to the value of compassion, loyalty, and true love. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.